On this channel, I tell the stories of Fortnite's best pro players. We've talked about Peterbot,
Yeah, we are the greatest in the world. I will say that.
Hoyo,
Agers, Acorn, and Poyle.
and Booga. But what do all of these players have in common? They have all been teammates with one player, and not just any player. One of the most mechanical, confident,
I think CS player with the most aura.
Probably ColdFV.
Cold is my duo Cold.
I mean, I have to say myself, of course.
straight up talented players we have ever seen.
Oh my god.
That's a bad look, dude. I'm gonna need to delete VOD because right now, bro, you know, it's just a bad look.
This is the entire story of Cold. Joshua Cold Butler was born on May 23rd of 2007. He started playing Fortnite right after it came out when he was barely 10 years old.
I started playing when I was like 10 years old on my PlayStation 4 with school friends, and I kind of just like fell in love with the game. I kept playing it, and then my mom ended up buying a PC for us. I was just getting better, I was just getting really good. I didn't know how good I was though, because I didn't really watch like pro competitive play like that.
Nobody knew it yet, but buying that PC might have been the best investment Cold's mom ever made. Although he was young, Cold quickly got excited about playing on the competitive side of Fortnite. So when Epic Games started releasing tournaments, he jumped right in, playing the Share the Love event on March 3rd of 2019, where he placed 6,545th. But hey, everyone's got to start somewhere. Anyways, if you're good at math, you probably realize there's one big issue with what I just said. On March 3rd of 2019, Cold would have been only 11 years old. And if you're familiar with the Fortnite rules, you'd know that you have to be 13 years old to compete in official tournaments. But luckily for the young GOAT, he never got caught playing underage, and at this point, I think he's so good that nobody's planning on snitching on him. Regardless, just because he had such a low placement in the Share the Love Cup didn't mean that Cold was about to give up. He played in 8 out of 10 weeks of the World Cup qualifiers and even made his first earnings during week 4. Together with his duo, he finished 281st, earning himself $175. And once again, I'll bring up the fact that he did this at literally 11 years old. So although $175 might not seem crazy to a lot of you, if you were an 11-year-old kid and you earned it playing Fortnite, I think it's safe to say you would be super excited. And because of this excitement for the game, Cold continued to play in tournaments for the rest of 2019 and 2020. And because of his young age, Cold would continue to earn money, but also had to mostly stay under the radar. He couldn't make too much of a name for himself, otherwise, people would know that he was playing underage. However, he was still making some cash, finishing 16th in the 1M Super Cup on November 21st in 2020, earning $750. Then, he got a bunch more earnings a few weeks later when he won $1,200 during the Frosty Frenzy tournament. But outside of that, Cold didn't have crazy placements. Again, he was still very young and had a lot to learn. But despite not being the best in the game, Cold played in literally every tournament he could. Because Cold knew at a very young age that by playing with the best players was the only way he could become one of the best players. And little did he know, this hard work was about to pay off big time.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't the worst. I wasn't making money though, but I wasn't the worst, so I kind of just kept playing, and then it kind of just skyrocketed.
2021 started out like any other year of Fortnite for Cold. He was still earning some money, but nothing crazy. Just some cash cups here and there. But during the fall of 2021, something insane happened. Cold would make it to his first ever grand finals of the FNCS during Chapter 2, Season 8. At the time, Cold was trioing with Elite, who was another young fighter, and Cease, who was a older IGL who had been around the game forever and was one of the smartest players in the game ever since he played in the World Cup. But although Cease was experienced, Cold and Elite were playing in their first grand finals ever. so nobody was really expecting this trio to even crack the top 25. But against all odds, these guys absolutely dominated for the first 5 games of day 1. They were in first place with Cold bringing an insane amount of solo impact points.
We have Cold here, spotlight from Slice's trio here. Solo time alive, 5 minutes. So obviously 5 minutes without the rest of his teammates continuing to drive home those standing points and remain in the game to some capacity. And solo impact points as well, 42 points. This means the points he's created from having no one else on the team with him. Just him, 42 points when he is the solo player left in that trio. Total eliminations as well, Vivid, looking good at 14.
Yeah, 14 eliminations there. And the impressive thing about the solo impact points is actually he has the most out of any player in these finals. And let me tell you something. The next closest person has 21 points. So he literally has a 21 point lead when it comes to finding those solo points by himself. That's crazy.
I mean, dude, solo impact points, they will absolutely save a run and a trio. I mean, that's why they're in first place right now, right? And now, of course, if Cold can keep his teammates alive, right, they can continue to climb these leaderboards, but we only have 1 game left.
Unfortunately, however, the trio were contested on their last game of the first day, which ruined their chances of coming out on top day 1.
We might be watching Cease's team contested now. Remember, they were up here somewhere around that Coral Castle area. Could it be that Cam Slam, Plague, and Bryce right now trying to catch a little revenge here, pushing on in? I do wonder. We'll find out.
Pretty sure we saw this in one of the qualifiers too, and the way that this is going is basically exactly the same way it went. Oh, I was about to say for Cease's team, but no. They've managed to pick up and actually win that engagement so far through. I actually thought that it was a 2v3 situation the other way around, but no, they're actually going to end up picking up all 3 for Flucams. And
so unfortunate for Cease, Cold, and the lead as we were trying to set the stage for them, and probably just caught him off guard there. That quick little drop spot fight there.
Luckily for them, however, this horrible off-spawn loss wouldn't impact their overall placement too much. However, it did knock them down to 6th place for the end of day 1, which was pretty devastating for the young players. However, on day 2, the dynamic trio would immediately bounce back, winning the first game of the second day of competition.
But look at this, Cold, Cease, and Elite. We said they needed a big game. We talked about them needing to have a comeback story after a rough draw spot yesterday, and they do have high ground. Confirmed here.
The full trio, Cease, Elise, and Cold still up as a solo. Back in the turret, we see Chucky playing the medkit at the same time. On the low ground, Rogue Shark, Clarity G now still in this. This has to be a low ground versus high ground playstyle at the end. The 119 comes through though from Cold at that moment. That could be the winning game for them. It's a 3v2. That's Chucky that goes down. One player drops, Cold drops down the back. He connects with the max damage, 203. He whiffs the next shot. It's Clarity goes down. He's not. Elite's at the top of the storm trying to do the shots that he can, but he still has the 4 floppers that he can play. It's Rogue Shark versus Elite. Rogue Shark gets it. Elite goes down, and the victory royale's gonna go to Cease, Cold, and Elite in game number 7.
Beautifully done there with the 12 elimination victory royale. Talk about a comeback redemption arc story here, setting up for Cease, Cold, and Elite, who had that struggle of a day. The last game yesterday, they were taken out, and they said, you know what, not today. We're coming back even better than ever.
After all was said and done, however, they would end the Grands with 269 points, which was not good enough to beat out Miro, Booga, and Muzz at the top of the leaderboard. While this was probably disappointing considering what had happened on day 1, 6th is still very impressive for someone who's never competed at that level before. Plus, on top of that, he got to take home $15,000, which for someone who's only 13 years old, probably felt like $1 million. And although the trio performed great, some people thought it was just a fluke. However, Cold, Elite, and Cease were out to prove everyone wrong, because following this huge performance in the Grand Finals, they would play even better in the FNCS Grand Royale at the end of 2021. Here, they would place 5th and take home $18,000. But things for this trio were about to come to an end. And no, there wasn't some epic fight or anything crazy that happened. In fact, it was much simpler than that. Epic Games decided to switch things up and switch from the trios game mode to duos. This switch up meant that going into 2022, everyone was on the hunt for a new duo, including our young prodigy Cold. So he would decide to team up with a fellow NA East player, Scented. Scented and Cold would team up for the first time on January 20th of 2022 during a duo Cash Cup. They actually earned getting first place on NA West, and also getting 7th on NA East, which is insane considering it was their first time duoing together. But it made sense at the end of the day. Cold was an incredible fighter, and Scented was one of the best IGLs in the game. But Cash Cup placements didn't exactly matter. What really mattered is how this duo would do in FNCS. So Scented and Cold jumped into the Chapter 3 Season 1 Grand Finals as a duo on February 25th of 2022. And here, Cold would match his best FNCS placement yet again, getting 5th and earning $20,000. And if that wasn't good enough to prove to you that this duo was legit, they would follow it up with an even better placement in Chapter 3 Season 2, where they would get 2nd, earning $45,000. This was Cold's biggest win yet, but unfortunately, it wasn't the first place that him and Scented were looking for. The duo would really need to come together and absolutely demolish the competition in the next Grand Finals to prove they were the best duo around. Unfortunately, however, they hit a snag, because in the following Grand Finals, Cold and Scented would finish in 25th place, which was the lowest placement Cold had ever had in an FNCS Grand Finals since his debut last year. But despite the low placement, Cold and Scented decided to stick it out until the FNCS Invitational. The FNCS Invitational was the first LAN event in over 3 whole years. It was being held live and in person at the Raleigh Convention Center in North Carolina on November 12th and 13th, and people were hyped for this event. No one had been to a LAN since the beginning of COVID, and this convention center was packed full of fans who were hyped for the return of in-person events. And the reason I bring all this up is because not only was this the first LAN event in 3 years, but it was also the first LAN event that Cold had ever played in. Despite Scented and Cold having not played so great in their previous Grand Finals, and also being at the disadvantage of Cold being so young and inexperienced at LAN, they performed better than anybody could have ever imagined. Cold would end up placing 3rd out of 50 teams and earning $60,000 each with his duo Scented. And remember, this wasn't just the best players on NA East. These were the best players all around the world. Even though Cold and Scented were one of the best duos of 2022, they did decide to split up heading into 2023. So on January 7th of 2023, Cold would have to play his first Cash Cup with a new player, the one and only Acorn. Acorn had made a name for himself during the Chapter 2 Season 5 Grand Finals, where him and his trio placed first in NA East. And since then, he has been a prominent Fortnite player and a very obvious choice for a duo if you're Cold. See, Acorn already had an FNCS win under his belt, and he was ready to help Cold get his first one too. So the duo loaded up for the Major 1 Grand Finals on March 4th and 5th of 2023. And to say that there was a lot of interest around this team would be an understatement. At this point, Cold was highly regarded as one of, if not the best fighter in all of Fortnite. And Acorn, well, his track record already spoke for itself. And with all this pressure to do good, many people would crumble. But not Cold, because along with Acorn, he would win the 5th game on day 1 and finish in first place with an insane 329 points going into day 2.
With Acorn and Cold holding on to the high ground, Click's trying to cause destruction and madness, but he gets spotted out of position. That's Cold, who lands a crucial shot, going for the piece control, causing everything to come crumbling down for Clicks and Cold, and it ends up with the last 2 teams remaining.
I said it at the beginning of this FNCS season. I said Acorn and Cold were going to be the team to take it all, and they're doing just that. High ground, they got it. Pressure, they're doing it, and now Kwa and Jack need to be careful because Acorn and Cold look to finish it quick.
It's a perfect scenario for Kwa and Jock, though. Players have to come down off that mountaintop And Cold is trying to put the pressure before they're forced to drop ultimate low. Not very many builds left. Shockwave Hammer trying to bring this game to a close. Cold takes about 75 damage out of zone, in zone. He's trying to do all he can. Now it's Acorn's turn to finish the job. 15 eliminations. This team is looking to take the FNCS by storm.
I am almost positive that that is a record-breaking performance there from Acorn and Cold. What a finish here to Game 5. That was the comeback they needed and a moment that is going to be defining for them in this tournament.
Acorn and Cold were obvious frontrunners for first place going into the second day of competition. But as you guys know from watching all of my videos, anything can happen in these tournaments. 1 second, you're in first by 90 points, and the next second, you're outside of 10th place. One unlucky drop, or one random person contesting you can literally ruin your game or your entire tournament. So Acorn and Cold would have to be extra careful if they wanted to win. And when I say careful, I meant aggressive, because this duo was not getting off the gas pedal. On the second game of day 2, they would get their first win of the day and also 10 elims.
Favor, causing Iamzo a little bit of damage, but it's not going to be a good exchange as Iamzo Rise end up cleaning them up.
And we got 4 teams remaining here in the final moments. And they're all superstars of the region. And you can see Cold making sure to miss Acorn up. That challenge for the high ground is going to come through, but he flies right past, landing just a short shot on Iamzo. Acorn ends up in the wrong box. He's under pressure, but he's going to be able to survive. Cold making sure that these clutch plays he's known for is going to follow him to the FNCS finals.
Acorn and Cold must have heard Z talking that trash there in the pre-show, because they're coming back. Not only are they coming back, 5, 6, 7, 8 eliminations as they hold on to the final moments. Cold going to challenge fast there on height, then go for the low ground, takes out Jackson, and now it's a 1v1.
Ice in his veins. He called Cold for a reason. A huge shot on the match. Back to back, 10 eliminations. This man wants the title. He wants to go to the FNCS.
This win was huge in solidifying their lead for the rest of the matches, and in total, the duo would earn 594 points, which was plenty enough to take home first place and Cold's first ever FNCS championship. Cold pulled off some insane solo clutches that shocked the entire Fortnite community. Even the commentators were at a loss for words.
Duo that is more deserving than this accolade.
I mean, come on now. Cold is the one that deserves the hold that axe of champions.
100%. Cold will
What
hold
a
back.
performance. Exactly. I mean, I was literally blown away at a loss for words to try to break down some of these solo clutches that Cold put on game after game after game, all 12 games. It seemed like it was just a Cold show.
And this first place was massive for Cold and Acorn, because on top of getting Cold his first ever FNCS title, the duo also punched themselves a ticket to the Global Championships at the end of the year. Plus, they also took home $60,000 each, which always feels good too. Following Major 1, Acorn and Cold competed in Major 2 on May 14th, where they would place 6th, and then they would place 6th again once more in Major 3. But at this point, none of that really mattered too much because they were already qualified for Globals. And speaking of Globals, let's talk about it. The FNCS Global Championship 2023 was held from October 13th to 15th in Copenhagen, Denmark. This would be the first ever FNCS held outside of North America. For those of you that don't remember, this tournament was a little bit different than the previous Invitational. Instead of being a 2-day event, it was a 3-day event. The upper bracket of winners from the first 3 majors competed on day 1, and the top 25 of those duos wouldn't have to play on day 2, and they would skip to the grand finals on day 3. Acorn and Cold had a fantastic day 1. They even got themselves a victory royale during match 3.
But the materials refresh, it might not do him any good. He's not able to break into the zone in time. Acorn instead will be here to play cutoff, as now Merstash forced underneath it all. Larkpix as well, living as a solo. This is looking like Acorn and Cold's game for the taking.
And Acorn's doing an excellent job pressuring with the breach of shotgun, making sure no one's got a chance to breathe, but Larkpix is still going. He's found 2. That's 11 eliminations for Larkpix on the low. But NA takes the game. Acorn and Cold, the shrug.
He's making it look like it's exactly his plan. It's just 2 easy.
And in the end, they came out in first place on day 1 by almost 75 points.
In first place, you have Agent Cold and Dig Acorn. They have been phenomenal. Yes, 325 points. First place.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got them.
And as I said before, because they played so well, they would get a free pass all the way to the grand finals on day 3. Sadly, however, day 3 did not go as well as day 1, and Acorn and Cold weren't able to get a victory royale in any of the matches. The duo averaged about 15th place in most of their games, but because of their consistency and high eliminations, they still were able to finish in the top 10, getting themselves a 7th place in the grand finals. Which, considering the fact that they were competing against the best 100 players in the world, is still incredible. But it was disappointing considering how well they had played on day 1. Following the Global Championships heading into 2024, Acorn and Cold decided to stick together for duos once more. Even though they didn't take home first place, they were absolutely destroying the competition at NA Central and knew they would perform better again at LAN next year. For those of you that can't remember February of 2024, Major 1 was one of the best FNCSs I have ever watched. I mean, it was absolutely insane. The south part of the island was covered with the most stacked duos Fortnite has ever seen.
Let's talk about being contested. The south half of our map is just names on names. Talk me through this a little bit.
Yeah, it's getting crazy down here, and if you go ahead and look through some of these names, you'll find some of the favorites to actually go ahead and win this FNCS.
Acorn and Cold, however, were triple contesting. Yes, triple contesting Fencing Fields, which was home to Nisha, who dropped the insanely overpowered Striker AR, as well as her medallion, which slowly regenerated the holder's shield. Of course, this is loot that everybody wanted, and that's why it was so contested. And if you're Acorn and Cold, who are some of the best fighters in the world, they were dropping at that location, even with the risk of it being triple contested, just to show everyone how good they were.
You know, being contested here was so bad for us. We definitely did think about changing our drop spot a little bit before Grands, but we were kind of just thinking about it as like, if we switch our drop spot, we're not going to get uncontested. It makes no sense. Why would we get uncontested after leaving our own drop spot that we've had for the whole season? So we kind of just put that to the side and just whatever happens, happens. We're going to sit here and we're going to land here. We're going to just prove that, like, this is our spot. Like, we're claiming this is our stuff. And that's what we did. We just played every single game, not caring what would happen on spawn, and just fighting for the vote. And I think that's a reason why we did really good.
Cold and Acorn won Game 4 on day 1.
Cold, Acorn, it's just a grapple blade up. That is NA strategy for overtaking height or challenging on height. You grapple blade to the high ground, and it's just so crazy that it works, MDF. Cold and Acorn now suppressive fire into all the teams caught in the mid and low ground layer congestion. Tahi, Scented, they've got a deep run going for them this game, but unfortunately the med kits are gonna cut them short of staying inside of the zone. All too easy for Acorn and Cold to take this one home.
After winning a game and bringing in 305 points, Cold and Acorn placed 3rd at the end of day 1. They were only 13 points behind Cooper and Miro in 2nd place, and Yamzo and Rise in 1st place. Then, on day 2, Cold does what he does best and started raking in the eliminations. This trio was doing consistently well in their first 3 games and then ended up winning the 4th game of the day with 9 eliminations.
But it's Cold and Acorn who will surely take this win right now and break away with a monstrous lead here.
This win was huge as it gave them a pretty big lead over the rest of the region. But anything could happen going into the last game, and that's why Cold and Acorn would seal the deal with an 8 elimination victory royale.
Epic gets a big chunk out of Cold, but it's gonna be Cold who turns things around. Double elimination here onto Clicks and Epic Whale.
Oh, and another one. And now it's Duke and Threats on the low ground here. Acorn and Cold have fought their way all the way up to 1st place, and it doesn't matter how you cut it, they will be your grand finals champions here. But can they close it out on a win? They sure can. A huge tag there of course, Cold's gonna hit it back to back, and they do it again here. A year later, from Chapter 4 to Chapter 5, we have winners.
Stole the words right out of my mouth there, MDF. The fact that Acorn and Cold are able to replicate their success from the very first major of Chapter 4 and now here in Chapter 5, starting things off with a bang.
Just incredible. Very rarely do you see your first place team ride it into a victory royale for an undisputable championship victory. That is the way you close out a game of Fortnite.
This was Cold's second FNCS win, and obviously a huge accomplishment. And more importantly, this dynamic duo once again qualified for the Global Championship at the end of the year. The team continued to do well throughout 2024, but as you guys know, Peterbot and Pollo were doing most of the first place winning. However, Acorn and Cold were putting up a great fight, getting 5th place in Major 2 and 3rd place in Major 3. And 2024 wasn't just a huge year for Cold in FNCS, because outside of the Epic Games hosted tournaments, Cold would also get a chance to represent XSET in the Esports World Cup in Saudi Arabia. And of course, they won.
XSET claimed the championship, the trophy, and the glory, proving exactly why each other team feared facing them. Ritual earned the tournament MVP title with his incredible sniping skills, consistently delivering game-changing shots that secured XSET's path to victory.
Following this big win at the Esports World Cup, it was time for the FNCS Global Championships. On September 8th of 2024, the entire Fortnite world was watching, and under this pressure, unfortunately, Acorn and Cold would not be able to perform. The duo would have their worst placement in any FNCS finals they had ever played, getting 26th. Following the global finals, however, Fortnite made an announcement that would change things big time for Cold.
Man, I can't even believe it. We just wrapped up 2024. Just an amazing year of Fortnite. I was kind of curious though, what's the plan for 2025? Oh, $8 million in prize pool. Dude, that's actually really awesome. The players are gonna be really excited to hear that. Wait, I'm sorry, step back. Did you say trios? We're going back to trios?
With the return of trios meant that literally everyone was looking for a new team, including Acorn and Cold, who, after a whole 2 years, finally decided to part ways. And that brings us to 2025, where the first FNCS major just happened a few weeks ago. Cold ended up playing with the previous global champion, Peterbot, and their new trio mate, Ritual. Despite Peterbot's insane performance, having won the previous 3 FNCSs, this trio was unable to come out on top. They finished in 2nd place, just narrowly missing out on the gold medal. And don't get me wrong, that is an incredible placement. But after not winning, the trio decided to make a big change. See, Cold and Peterbot would drop Ritual to pick up none other than Pollo, who, for those of you who have been living under a rock, was Peterbot's previous duo, and also the Trio FNCS winner from the Major 1 in 2025. Which means that we now have Peterbot and Cold, who are very easily the 2 best fighters in Fortnite history, playing with Pollo, the guy who's currently on a 4 FNCS win streak and one of the best support players in Fortnite history. And I can't lie to you guys, I think these 3 are going to absolutely dominate for the rest of the year. Whether or not Cold, Peter, and Pollo get another first place for Cold, it's safe to say that Cold is one of the best players in Fortnite history, and his career is just getting started. Keep in mind, I just told you a very long story of success, and the kid we're talking about isn't even 18 years old yet. If you guys enjoyed this documentary about Cold, please do hit the like button, leave a nice comment, and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more of my videos. And if you want to watch one right now, you can click right here on your screen to watch another one of my documentaries. Thank you guys so much for your support as always. I love every single one of you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace.